is Nick Vivian. We are here at the end of ITB Day 2, so if you're watching this on YouTube, you're probably watching out of order, but if you are still hanging out with us live, I'm still alive. Martin thankfully took the interviews all day, and I wanted to sit with Gino here from OTA Insight since I didn't get a chance to chat during TTE a couple weeks ago. So for those who may not be familiar, what is OTA Insight?
So OTA Insight is a hospitality technology company. So what we do is we basically collect data from the online travel agencies, the meta search websites, brand.com direct channels, and we kind of visualize all the data to hotels. So we basically, person working in a hotel can see what the prices are for all the hotels in their neighborhoods, so their direct competitors, but they can also see how the prices are distributed across all the different online channels.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot of data.
So for a hotel person, I always think it's a lot of work to look at all this data and constantly decide what your rates are. How are you helping them reduce the noise?
I think that's a good description, because that's indeed actually where we want to get to, where we basically want to make sure that hotels, they have a clear strategy, they know what they want to sell their rooms at. So where we want to come in is basically collect all the data, make sure that we have all accurate, reliable information, and we just visualize it in a way that if there are things out of order versus strategy, that they can directly pinpoint them and take action. So we really visualize where are things out of line, where would you actually be able to need to pick up on it, because there is a sudden event that you weren't aware of. There's basically a competitor that's dropping their price significantly. You need to be aware of that to be able to be competitive in the market. So that's really where we try to visualize things very clearly, action-oriented, and making sure that they can spend time on other things rather than having to delve into different websites, dive into Excel sheets, looking at so many different screens already.
So basically people were going and searching just manually. Like if I wanted to see what rates my competitor hotel had, I would go to an OTA and search.
Because there's so many different channels, exactly what a consumer does. They just go online on...
Tab, 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 tab.
Yeah, absolutely, So they go on TripAdvisor, Trivago, and then they let you check the top 10, and then they check all the different prices, so it's so much work.
And then you probably don't do it, because you're the negative reinforcement, right? Why would you do that hell thing,
Yeah, no, that's true. Because also then you need to fix it. If you then actually see that, oh, my rates are not, and then we need to go and fix it, you need to go and call your OTA partners. And then that happens on a daily basis, because OTAs are repricing, or everyone's kind of repricing their rooms on a daily basis. So it's really tough to stay on top of that. Now with kind of the automation, a lot of hotels use revenue management systems where rates are updated on a daily basis, actually not on an hourly, almost minute by minute, so prices are constantly changing.
It sounds like the price drop or price adjustment kind of alerts seems to be is a very critical piece of this, right?
Yeah,
kind of similar you might get from a retailer like Walmart or something. There's a price drop. Was that kind of, where did you start, I guess? What was the first problem? Was it the idea of giving notifications of these things? Or?
Well, we actually really started initially back in the summer of the London Olympics 2012. So that's when my business partner and myself started, because we suddenly saw that there was a massive amount of hotel rooms that were unsold. Whereas we thought it's massive demand in the city, everybody's coming to see the London Olympics, and everybody was really panicky and dropping their rate significantly to try to fill it with demand that wasn't there. So for us that was quite interesting, because we already were quite conscious of the fact that if you want to book something, you probably need to book it a lot in advance. And then we suddenly see all these cheap hotel rooms, because we're from Belgium, so we had a lot of friends wanting to come to see the Olympics, and they're like, oh, it's going to be so expensive. And then we saw all these cheap rates and didn't make sense. So Adrian, my co-founder, data geek he started collecting all this data and pulling it in and trying to see how does it stack up.
And so you could almost do like advance warning too, to say, hey, don't drop your rate, because what's going to happen is everyone else will. Is that kind of how you want to get to?
Yeah, that's also like where we want to make sure that ideally our investors are also like, what are you going to do if everybody uses your tool? Nobody's going to be competitive anymore. And we're like, no,
tool fights the tool, right?
It's brilliant, because then everybody can, rather than dropping their rates, they know that they can be confident everybody's going to get their fair share of the pie and everybody's more profitable. Rather than, because if one person starts dropping, the whole market follows.
It's like the flash traders on Wall Street or something, when you see that drip, So you and I were on a panel just now about OTAs. Was it conflict versus cooperation, or something along those lines? What are your thoughts on that? Now that we're not on that stage, you had some pretty good comments, but do you feel the role of OTAs is still valid, and how is it evolving, if so?
It is definitely valid. I think the OTAs are starting to become more and more from confrontational coming around to being a partner. So they started to offer tools now to try to really make sure that everybody is comfortable sharing data. So I think there definitely is the willingness to share more and more data, but at the same time, we're not really at the stage where, because they're still competing for the same hotel guest, and basically whenever a hotel guest book direct, the commission doesn't go to the OTA. So I think there's definitely a role for OTAs to play to definitely attract the consumer or the hotel guest that's not gonna find your hotel because of language differences, because different locations where the hotel can't market themselves. But I think there's definitely a lot more work to be done from the OTAs to share more customer information to the hotels then, to really talk about a partnership.
How do you feel these moves towards creating technology for the hotels or kind of giving them more access, kind of trying to, I guess, see that partnership? Do you think that's real, authentic move, or is this more lip service?
I think it's probably the latter, what you just mentioned. I think it's almost like the more you get dependent on something, it's like almost what they say with a drug. The more you start using it, the more you get addicted to it. And at some point, at the end of the road, you're too far down the line to actually go back to where it all started to go wrong. So I think a lot of hotels are already realizing that, are starting to realize that, but still the drug is sometimes too strong for people to resist. And I think that's quite I would say, a risky scenario to be in. And I think hotels need to be aware of that. And the OTAs are so good at converting consumers to book. They're also very good at getting the hotels sticky to their platform, because they're making it so easy to upload promotions. They're making it so easy to become part of their loyalty scheme. Everything is frictionless, and they know how to I would say they know how to seduce the consumer and now also the hotelier, and the results are there because they can show strong bookings, can show strong revenues. So for everyone to try to make the decision away from easy business is a very difficult one.
I guess you just have to, as a hotel, look at what the commission rate you're paying a particular partner is, and is it worth that money? Because if you're sticky and they can convert customers, you don't want to do that. You want to run a hotel, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They are good at what they're doing, and I think there's definitely a very important place for them in the whole kind of distribution landscape. Yeah. And in the end, they make you pay the bills as well. So it's important that you get enough from them in return.
And the guest experience, I mentioned this on the panel too, everyone always just forgets, just have a better guest experience or focus on the guest. There are so many different types that, never forget that you're serving somebody, once they get to the hotel. Yeah. So kind of wrapping up, but give us a tip or two of just something, whether it's even just for hotels but in general, when I have a data set or a large process that I'm going through, how can I make sure that I'm looking at the right, I guess, pieces to give me those action items, because it is overwhelming for people just to see all of this information. Are there any strategies that you guys use to help hotels understand it?
So kind of what we always strongly believe is in making sure to make it simple, almost make sure that you're focused on the big outliers and try to address those first. So making sure when you're seeing, like I say, see outliers in terms of pricing versus competition, if you see outliers in terms of how your pricing is across different channels, that you're trying to fix it and make sure it doesn't, you get to the root cause and make sure it doesn't happen again. So first key point is make sure you have a clear strategy, that you're not constantly firefighting and that you don't know where it's coming from. So because you constantly put out a fire, but it's coming back the next day because you don't really have a clear control or clear strategy. So I think very often we really try to get hotels to know what they're working on and then pinpoint where it's going wrong, try to help them fix it, because that's also not just monitoring and showing them where it goes wrong, we also do help them to fix it, which is important. And then continuing to monitor, because business models are changing. We kind of see now with Airbnb basically almost switching their business model, becoming an OTA. The OTA is becoming an Airbnb. So it's basically what was the situation yesterday or last week is not going to be a situation next week anymore. Hotel Tonight, you were talking earlier, that you use them very often. Now you can actually use them to book a month in advance, 2 months in advance.
180 days now. Yeah, some places.
So see, we're technology providers, we don't even keep track with the changes happening constantly. So I think for hotels, it's important that there's channels like us, or channels like basically tnooz, where you can stay up to date on what's happening, because there's so much happening to pick up on. So I'm a avid reader of your newsletters
Well,
because every morning almost there's like, oh, that's something I didn't know about. So
and it's hard to keep up on our end too. It's like
yeah.
I kind of liken it. I always have the subway analogy. Like if you ever go to a subway, sometimes you start to notice like now there's like breakfast croissants, and then next it's pizza, and it's like everyone does everything. So it's like Airbnb ending up with hotels. It makes sense because as growth, you have to do new things.
If they want to get to an IPO, where are they going to get the extra revenue from?
Growth has to come from somewhere, and that usually means increasing your product type or whatever it is. So do you think that Airbnb will be successful as an OTA?
I have my doubts. I do seriously have my doubts. I think what Brian Chesky has in mind in terms of what Airbnb is and also what the early adopters have in mind what it is, I think it's going to change significantly if they're going to actually allow different properties on the platform. But at the same time, also OTAs are going to change. So I think it's probably not going to be their downfall because the OTAs are also probably going to self-inflict themselves by getting vacation rentals onto their platform and upsetting hotels and consumers that just want to book a hotel. So I think they're both going to have to figure it out. They're strong enough. They're cash rich enough to figure it out. They've got all the data, so I'm sure they will be fine, but I don't think it's going to be without any bumps along the way.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they understand the economics when they talk about building local market teams in all these places. Like, do you know how expensive that is? No wonder commissions, they're just expensive.
That's the other thing, you're right. Like, how are they ever going to indeed, like, if you look at Booking.com and Expedia, the kind of market teams they have to, they're miles away from that. It's an endless
cost, you know. And I guess the one thing they do have is that supply or that demand that's already kind of organically happening. You know, not spending too much money on ads, even though they do spend some.
Yeah.
But maybe that's it. If that sticky brand, it maybe does just come down to the brand.
Yeah.
We'll find out though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not today, but thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It's great
Nick.
to chat with you as always.